Good morning on this Sunday, January 24th, and welcome to the Georgia Gang. We are now into a Joe Biden administration. What will it mean for Georgia Republicans in a post-Trump era? Georgia leaders say the state is doing a better job with the vaccine distribution, but there's still a lot of frustration and confusion about first and second doses. Some folks in Buckhead are exploring the idea of cityhood. We'll discuss. Phil, Theron, Kathy, and Janelle are all here. The debate and discussion begin right now.
From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia Gang starts now.
A new era begins in Washington, from Georgia's two U.S. senators who changed the balance of power in the upper chamber to President Joe Biden with a message of unity at his inauguration.
We can see each other not as adversaries, but as neighbors. We can treat each other with dignity and respect.
It was a peaceful transfer of power, but not filled with the usual pomp and circumstance as Joe Biden and Kamala Harris took their oaths of office. The pandemic forced most to watch from their homes. Threats of violence meant more National Guard troops than spectators.
I do.
Congratulations.
But it was a momentous occasion for Georgia's two new U.S. senators, each one making state history.
Jon Ossoff, of course, is the first Jewish senator elected to office from Georgia, and Raphael Warnock, the first African-American U.S. senator elected from the Peach State. Theron, just wanted to get your thoughts on that historic day, since you pretty much had a front row seat. You were in Washington. What was the mood like?
Well, minus the police presence, Lori, which we needed because, we wanted to make sure that this time around the federal government and the Capitol Police make sure that everyone was protected. But it wasn't this massive crowd that we saw during the Obama inaugurations. But the people that I did talk to from Georgia and all over, it was just, people who now can rest easier knowing that we have a new regime, a new president in the White House. But there was a particular interest in from people when I told them I was from Georgia, particularly Atlanta, and they immediately wanted to know about Warnock and Ossoff. And many of them thanked me, Lori, for making sure that those two senators went to Washington to give the Democrats the advantage and the majority they need to move forward the Biden-Harris agenda. And so it was a wonderful tribute. If you guys saw it on television with the flags and how it was really designed to make sure that we honor the hundreds of thousands of deaths that have happened in the country from the COVID-19 deadly disease. But ultimately, I was very impressed and very grateful for the speech that President Biden gave to try to unify this country.
Phil, I want to bring it home now to Georgia. I want to turn now to what happens to Republicans in a post-Trump presidency. Obviously, former President Trump still has a lot of support, but 2022 is right around the corner. So how close should Republicans stick to him?
Well, I think it's very important that the Georgia Republican Party sticks with the Trump base. The last poll I saw is that the vast majority of Republicans in Georgia still appreciate the Trump record, and I think that it's coalition building time. That's what the Democrat Party does, that's what the Republican Party does, and the Republicans have to do it better. So you stick with the Trump base, you keep with some of the themes that elected Donald Trump in 2016, which the Democrats are already undoing, and of course both sides have to grab that independent vote, the moderate vote, the suburban vote, whatever you want to call those different voting groups that swing elections in the state. It was a very close election, November 3rd and also on January 5th. And I think that we'll have to be watching what Senators Warnock and Ossoff are doing. Will they hold to all of those radical positions ranging from the Green New Deal, which is going to be super expensive, to open borders that will bring in a lot of low-wage workers that will compete, by the way, with blacks and teenagers and others. I don't know if that's a wise idea. So they'll be having a voting record that the Republicans will be looking at for 2022, and I predict you'll have Republican primaries, but I think that will be very good, and I think that will bring out more Republican votes, which they need.
Kathy, Senator Jon Ossoff is now our senior senator at the ripe old age of 33 because he was elected to a full 6-year term. It's hard to believe Senator Warnock will have to run again next year. But has Georgia lost some of its clout because we don't have any incumbents and really any committee chairman now? We know Senator Isaacson was actually chair of 2 committees.
On the Senate side, you mean?
Yes,
in
we know
terms
on the
of
House
chairs,
side
because I
there's
think
some,
David
yeah.
Scott is. Right. Well, you got to kind of work your way in and work your way up. I think what's significant is we have two incredibly bright senators with a future ahead of them. I'm extremely excited about both of them and their service for us. And, I kind of feel sorry for Senator Warnock, because running again after what he just went through in 2 years is not going to be a walk in the park, but I feel certain he's going to be able to consolidate his support and get renewed in 2 years. But I just think the Georgia delegation has been improved immensely. The addition of Nikema Williams and Carolyn Bordeaux on the House side, brings us some really smart, active representation, and I think Georgia's all the better for it.
Janelle, you were honorary co-chair of Senator Loeffler's campaign. What will you be watching out for of our two new senators?
Well, I share the same thing that Phil said. I definitely want to see how they're going to vote, even though I'm not really going to be surprised. I'm pretty sure they're going to vote in lockstep with Democrats. I don't see them being a swing vote at all. But I do think that it's important to note that a fractured party, as it relates to the Republican Party, cannot win going forward. And so I think there's an opportunity now for both sides of the argument to discuss where they come from. I think the Trumplicans have to understand that not everyone who's a traditional Republican is establishment. And then that the establishment has to understand where the Trumplicans, or the new era Republicans that came in under this administration, where they are coming from, and that their passion is necessary, and that we have to make sure we are listening. Because at the end of the day, we all want the same thing, which is for America to be the focus going forward. So I think that as a Republican Party, we are in a good position to have these complex discussions that will help grow us and create and make us even stronger going forward. But I'm pretty sure both senators are going to vote as suspected, like we've seen with Lucy McBath, who got in the House and she simply just voted whatever Pelosi told her to vote. And so I think we're going to see the same thing.
All right, Theron, I want to take a pause now from politics, because you texted me this morning just before we were taping on Friday about the passing of baseball legend Hank Aaron. Just your thoughts this morning. This is a traumatic and great loss for Georgia.
Yeah, very sad news. And Lori, thank you for taking a few minutes to honor, hammering Hank Aaron, who is an icon in the world of baseball. But he's my favorite baseball player, and I wore my 44 shirt today in his honor. And so my condolences go out to his wife, Billy, and the entire Aaron family. This is just another big loss for us in the Atlanta community. But he was just so much more than baseball. We know that he broke the Babe Ruth record. He held that home run record for 33 years. But he was really, really active in the Atlanta community. And I just want to offer my condolences to the family. And I think we should make sure that we take some time out to honor his legacy.
One of the nicest men I think I've ever interviewed, and he should be also known, as you mentioned, Theron, for all of his charitable giving and giving back to so many people. So he will definitely be missed. Thank you. Well, coming up, an update on where Georgia is when it comes to getting the COVID vaccine into the arms of citizens.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Email them at georgiagang@foxtv.com.
Governor Brian Kemp says the state is doing a much better job of getting the COVID vaccine into the arms of Georgians, and says the issue is now a supply problem. The state is doing better, but Kathy, there still seems to be a lot of confusion about appointment times, about booking second appointments. What more can the state be doing?
Well, I watched the Department of Public Health appropriations hearings a couple days ago, which shows how incredibly nerdy I am. But I will say I was phenomenally just floored that there was no ask for any kind of budget. The head of DPH, Kathleen Toomey, was asked by a Republican legislator if she thought that she should be requesting a raise for the people that are doing double duty, and she said no, for people to just thank them. We're operating with a 30 or 40-year-old data reporting system that we've had problems with since the beginning of this epidemic, and we're continuing to put Band-Aids on it instead of modernizing our system. We're worst in the nation in childhood vaccines, maternal mortality, bottom 5 to 10 in just about every disease indicator. This is a time for us to be investing in public health and getting it right. And I'm not sure we would know what to do if we had more vaccines. I'd love for us to get more, but right now it's in total disarray, and the lack of investment is just appalling.
Phil, how do you see this? I mean, should Dr. Toomey have been asking for more money, or is all the federal money coming in enough?
Well, I actually agree with Kathy on a couple of her points, and yes, that was a good question by that Republican lawmaker, and I think we should have had money targeting for the distribution. I have to say right up front, I think all of us know this, is that the manufacturing of the vaccine is just not enough for all 50 states, let alone Georgia. So we are at the mercy of the companies manufacturing the vaccine, and then, of course, we have to worry about distribution. I think Governor Kemp and Dr. Toomey need to be doing almost daily briefings on where we are, because this is a major concern. It doesn't make any difference if you're a Democrat, Republican, or an independent. We're all concerned about the vaccine and also the distribution, and is it getting to those who need it the most? Florida seems to be a model. The governor seems to be reporting every day they are targeting the 65 and over group and first responders, and I want to see what's going on in terms of some budget priority money, and also how we're going to figure out the distribution.
Absolutely. Theron, I want to focus now on Georgia's legislative session, where several House Democrats announced their push for a constitutional amendment that would restore voting rights for convicted felons. Your thoughts on this?
Yeah, Laura, this is the right thing to do. As I mentioned last year on this show, I had the honor of working with a really sort of robust team to pass a bill that was sponsored by State Senator Tanya Anderson that will give nonviolent felonies and nonviolent misdemeanors, people who've committed those nonviolent acts, an opportunity once they paid their fines and served their time to get their records restricted. And so now this push from Democrats to sort of give people an opportunity who have, for whatever reason, went to prison, because it's not a place that you go and stay forever. You go there to rehabilitate. So if they've come out of jail and they're felons, and if they paid their fines and they've served their time and they haven't gotten in any trouble, I definitely think they should have the opportunity to get their voting rights restored.
Janelle, we're talking about almost 300,000 convicted felons who aren't able to vote until they fully complete any sentence or probation or parole. And supporters of the constitutional amendment say Georgia is one of the most restrictive states on this issue.
Well, so I think it's key to make sure we make it clear that these are people who have not fully fulfilled their commitment. And I think whenever we start removing consequences, you lose the incentive to continue to fulfill your responsibility, and ultimately you weaken the effect of the consequences. And so I think that it is important to make sure that we have something in place that ensures that we are not allowing people to be almost rewarded for bad behavior. So I'm okay with, moving forward and making sure that we restore people all their citizen rights completely and fully once they have paid their dues to society. But it's once they have paid their dues to society, and as people become more and more politically engaged, this is going to become more and more of a talking point going forward, because we want to make sure that they are being incentivized to stay in right standings.
Kathy, I know that, we remember Governor Nathan Deal really focusing on criminal justice reform, but do you think something like this, it's about impossible to get through this Republican-controlled legislature, and also Governor Kemp?
Well, only time will tell, but I think that, restoring people's ability to participate in civic life after they've, served their time and done what they need to do, is a really important thing. And I think that this bill has been sent to the Senate Judiciary Committee, and Senator Brian Strickland seemed to make some comments that, that there might be a way forward with him. So, I think time will tell, but this is a very important issue for people in this state, and I look forward to the debate.
Phil, what do you think? It's a priority, obviously, for Democrats.
Well, I think we have a lot more important issues than this. I would ask my liberal colleagues on the panel, do you want convicted sex traffickers voting for your sheriff and DA? Do you want rapists voting for your sheriffs and DA, et cetera, et cetera? It's absurd. I do like the current plan where on a case-by-case basis, if someone has done their sentence, say 10 years in the prison, and then had a good record, you can petition to have your rights back. Now, maybe they'll get it and maybe they won't. But I think keep it that way. We don't need to have willy-nilly just giving all these felons rights back.
Theron, 30 seconds, final word on this.
Yeah, and I think for point of clarification, Representative Josh McLaren, the one who actually introduced the legislation, I think what it's really calling for is to have all convicted felons who have not committed who have not completed their time and paid their fines to actually automatically get their voting rights restored. So I think that's where the debate is going to come in, because I think even Democrats have got to make sure that they take some time to digest that proposal.
We'll be following it. Thanks, everybody. Coming up, some folks in Buckhead are looking at ways to form their own city, breaking away from Atlanta. We'll discuss straight ahead.
Join the discussion on the Georgia Gang Facebook page and watch past episodes on the Georgia Gang YouTube channel.
We've heard the issue of cityhood discussed before when it comes to Buckhead. Once again, some residents are looking into the possibility. Phil, I know some folks are frustrated by the crime rate and street racing, but is this even a viable possibility? I mean, wouldn't the Fulton County delegation and the legislature have to give the okay and even to get it on the ballot?
Well, that is the big question. And I think that you've just mentioned there's a process that you have to go through in the state legislature. I can sympathize with folks in Buckhead, too, with the problems they've had. And the last couple of mayors really have not looked out for the Buckhead business section of Atlanta as they have for others. But I don't know if it could get through the legislature. There's several steps mandated by state law. You have to have a study by a university here in the state that you can actually be feasible, and you have to have a good tax base, which of course Buckhead would have, and you'd have to provide basic services, et cetera, and then you have to hold hearings. And the Buckhead community is divided. You have business groups that don't want to have a new city. The very influential Buckhead Coalition and the Buckhead CID, for example, are opposed to it. And so I do sympathize with those folks. They've got a lot of problems that are being unaddressed by the current city administration. But I think that their time has come and gone for a separate city.
Yeah, Kathy, I always like to point out you were city council president in Atlanta and you ran for mayor. You've heard these debates before, but that's quite a big tax break Atlanta would lose if Buckhead became its own city. Tax base, I should say.
Well, Phil and I are having an unnatural alliance this year, this week, because I agree with him. I think this is a non-starter. I think, there's some folks out, kind of waving their fist in the air, but once they get down to the brass tacks of what it would take to actually do this, I think their efforts would be better spent thinking about the upcoming elections, who their mayor is, who their city council is, and what kind of agenda does Buckhead have for the next 4 years. And really think through that, as opposed to devoting time to what is really just a push of a rock up a hill that's going to roll back over them.
Yeah. Theron, this week Mayor Bottoms held another news conference about her efforts to decrease crime in the city. It's great that she's out and really on the forefront of this issue. In your eyes, though, is she doing enough? And what about the interim police chief?
Well, Laura, you've been fair in covering this sort of public safety concern that many of us have in Atlanta, and you've called on Mayor Bottoms to be more present. And so starting off the year 2021, I think she's done that. She's actually given now multiple updates and multiple press conferences about her plans to holistically deal with this public safety challenge we have in the city. And I think Chief Bryan, I'm a big supporter of his. I've supported him. I think he has had a very detailed report about what we're doing as far as investment, this One Atlanta, One APD plan to deal with some of the things that are challenging with crime. And so I think that this is a step in the right direction. I think you will see more of the mayor coming out and updating the public about dealing with this issue.
Over to Gwinnett County, where several groups, along with the county's legislative delegation, are calling on the county elections chair to resign over comments she made over wanting to change the election laws. Janelle Alice Olenek is a Republican appointee who says she will not resign and she stands by her comments. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think it's quite interesting that Democrats are still trying to run the, voter suppression game. It's interesting because they have increased voter registrations, they have increased turnout. No one was suppressed. I mean, they won every election just about that they put forth in 2020. So to still try to run this voter suppression game seems like a dog whistle to me. And I think that it's only responsible if you were to look at the fact that we've had an increase in absentee ballots coming in. We have an increase in the use of absentee ballots. It's only responsible to look at the laws around that to make sure that these elections are done in an integral way. So that's all that she's saying. That's all that anyone is saying that's responsible for elections. So I just wish we would kind of move past this whole voter suppression piece and just start looking at making sure we have laws in place that protects the integrity of the election process.
But Kathy, as a Democrat on this panel, do you see this as a way for Republicans to change the system because they lost?
Well, that's the problem with Alice Olenek. Here's what she said. We don't have to change all of, my words, the rules, but they've got to change the major parts of them so we at least have a shot of winning. And she said this at a Republican Party meeting. Now, she's the chief election officer in Gwinnett County, and in my mind, that statement is completely out of order, and that's why people are calling on her to resign. Not for any kind of other reason. I mean, she made a distinctly partisan statement as to her motivation about why things need to be changed. And that's just not where we need to go as a state. We need to keep pushing forward with upgrading our election processes, making it safe and efficient for people to vote. What we saw is, there were problems, but the allegations of fraud continue to be investigated and put down one by one by one. And so I think it's important to focus on her in terms of the inappropriateness of her comment.
Phil, last word. We've got about 30 seconds.
Right. Well, let me remind everybody that there are Democrats and Republicans openly on all the election boards in all 159 counties, and they all spout off on partisan statements. What we ought to be looking at with these election boards is how efficient and effective and ethical they're handling it in all their counties. So I'm not surprised when Republicans and Democrats pop off on this stuff. They're open, and they're on the election boards in every county.
All right, we'll leave it there, everyone. Thank you. Coming up, winners and losers. Stay tuned.
Time now for the week's winners and losers.
Kathy, we'll start with you this week.
Great, thanks. First, I want to give my condolences to the family of Reverend Gerald Durley. His wife Muriel passed away recently, and I know that she will be missed. She was such an integral part of our civic community here in Atlanta. For my loser, I want to go back and name Gwinnett Board of Election Chair Alice Olenek. Her comments were extraordinary, and I don't think that people pop off all over the state in a partisan way, and if they do, regardless of party, they should be removed. And my winner, I got to go a little bit beyond Georgia. Amanda Gorman, the National Poet Laureate, was simply enchanting in the poem that she read and wrote at the inauguration. I think she really captured the pain and optimism of this moment. And boy, I wish at 22 I had anything like the insight she did.
She has a bright future ahead. She was amazing.
Yes,
Janelle,
indeed.
Over to you.
Yeah, I would also like to send my condolences to the family of Reverend Durley as well. I sit on the board, the CBC board, and so he has been such a contributing factor, and so I'm so grateful for him, and I definitely send my condolences. And Kelvin and I are definitely going to miss seeing Hank Aaron sitting right on the box, right over our shoulder while we're at the seats at the Braves Stadium. So we also send our prayers and our condolences to his family. And my loser this week is the White House press secretary, Jen Psaki, who accused Biden of basically he didn't follow his own mandate with the mask at the federal buildings. And her excuse was just that he was celebrating and that this is not an important issue. So I think that was just really silly.
All right, Theron, your turn.
All right, I want to make State Representative Mary Margaret Oliver a winner this week. She was appointed as chair of the Martok House Committee. And also want to make Speaker David Ralston a winner this week. This is the first time, Lori, that a speaker has appointed a House member of the opposing party to a House chairmanship. And so I confirmed that with the Speaker. He told me that was true. So we definitely want to make them winners. And also a big shout out to Ashley Jones, who's from Georgia, who graduated from the University of Georgia, is going on to be a special assistant and liaison to the president and also federal legislative affairs office. And also Lawrence Bell, who just became the deputy chief of staff for Senator Warnock, and also Jake Best, who just became the press secretary for Senator Ossoff.
Great, and I'm glad you got in Mary Margaret Oliver, because that's a really great honor and so well deserved for her. Phil, we got about 40 seconds left.
Well, I will make Speaker Ralston a winner, too, because he appointed State Representative Barry Fleming over in the Harlem area near Augusta, the chairman of a special election integrity committee in the House. And he's got a great reform package that's going to be coming out, as I said on the program a couple weeks ago. Even the Secretaries of State office admitted during a special hearing that 8,000 people voted illegally in the state. That's the Secretary of State's office. You don't see that reported much. So, winners.
All right. Thank you. Well, my winner this week is Go Beyond Profit. It's a statewide alliance of business leaders committed to corporate generosity and improving people's lives. And this week they rolled out a series of videos, real conversations for CEOs and business leaders when it comes to developing and maintaining a diverse culture in the workplace. I was honored to help create the videos. I learned a lot, and I think you will too. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great week.
The opinions expressed in this broadcast are those of the panelists appearing in this program.